Here's a quick rundown of how the spreadsheet is going to work on election night 2024. We're going to follow the election live on election night with this sheet. Every single piece of data that comes in from the election, I'm going to put in here and then show you what happens. So we start in the top left here with any states that are called for Trump, Harris, and how many are remaining. So it's 270 electoral votes to win. Pretty much every state binds their electors to Trump and Harris, so we're not going to worry about that too much. But take a state like Alabama here, right? They are most likely going to Trump. So if we call that race for Trump, then you can see he's got 9 electoral votes. That's the simplest part of the sheet, but there's more interesting stuff that'll come in after the election starts to get underway. Over here in P and Q, you can see we're referencing the previous year's elections. So minus is in favor of Trump and plus is in favor of either Biden or Hillary. And they're tinted red and blue as such. So Trump won the state of Alabama by a difference of 25.5 or so points. This way, and the margin starts to come in, let's say it starts to come in minus 25 here, and we have already, we're going to be predicting that as an Alabama win, but we have 20% voting, or let's say it comes in as minus 14 and we've got 20% voting. Then we can see that we have pretty high confidence that that margin with 20% in, that Alabama is going to win. But let's say that margin holds up to 40%, that's going to be a 100% chance that Alabama wins. I mean, the idea of a swing that massive going in Harris's favor, it's just very unlikely to happen. And so with all the states, we can do that. We can take Arizona here. It's another state that's very close, right? Let's say it comes in at that 0.3 we saw in 2020, that really close margin. So right now, obviously, that's a very slight edge with 0% in toward Harris, but, you know, put 50% in. That's still going to be super close. And that could go either way. That can go up to 80%, right? You're still very close either way, not sure what's going to go in. It's not till you really get up high, 95%, 97%, you know, you really start leaning in one direction or another when the margin's close. But when the margin's a total blowout, like a minus 25 at 5%, right? That's going to be an Alabama win. So throughout the night, this confidence chart will update. And I have a spreadsheet here where we just took in what happens if Biden-Trump is anything close to Harris-Trump. And so I just started with the 2020 margins, and you could see some states like Alabama, Arkansas, Idaho clearly going to Trump. Some states like California, Connecticut, and District of Columbia clearly going to Harris. Now, if something crazy happens and margins are way off one state or another, then you can look over here to these far columns that show you the drift score. So this is the margin of drift between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in 2016 and Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2020. So there was, in the state of Alabama, a 2.24 point shift in favor of Joe Biden. That was actually a little bit less than the average drift on different states. Alaska actually shifted more, 4.6 points in favor of Biden than they did for Hillary Clinton. And over here in a state like Colorado, that was a big shift, over 1 standard deviation over. So these different columns over here really give us a sense of what happened in all the previous Trump elections, Trump presidential elections, and what we could see here, and when does something look way off base? And when we see some numbers that are coming in way off base, that may be a situation where we need to do some manual calculations. So I have this special field here in case, you know, let's say the remaining ballots are coming in, 2-1 for Harris for the absentee ballots like we saw before. You know, we could put a 50% lean on one side or another with the outstanding ballots and put all these up to 90% and kind of see, does that tilt the election in favor of Harris? And it would, of course, given a 10% remaining coming in, 50% coming in, 20% coming in 0. Or if it's tilting in favor of Trump, we just do minus 10 here, and you can see it's going to shift everything. So states that are leaning Trump, Harris likely is over 50% chance. And you can see all the formulas here are calculated here. You can see all my formulas are here, very simple. And this gives me a way, in case anything crazy happens, I can totally update this spreadsheet. So tune in live on election night. That's going to be Tuesday, November 5th. And it's going to start at 7 p.m. Eastern when the polls close. So really happy to see you there on either youtube.com, Tim Sexton Pinball, or twitch.tv/Timballs. Thank you.